Hey everyone, I'm here in one of the best whiskey stores in North America with the founder and owner, Andrew Ferguson. Andrew,
Hi, Bikram.
what a great pleasure.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Little known fact, we're one of the oldest private liquor stores in Canada.
Oldest private liquor store in Canada.
Yeah, we opened before Alberta actually privatized the government liquor stores. We were a wine-only shop. I joined here in 2003. I bought it almost 10 years ago. And in the 20 years that I've been here, we've gone from being effectively a wine-only store to almost a whiskey shop.
Whiskey shop
That's
with
what we're
amazing
known for.
spirits, wines, everything.
Yeah.
So let's go in there. Let's take a tour. Thank you. Walters.
Oh, sorry, I hit the pause button because you
Alright.
stick out your thumb.
That's
All right,
okay.
folks, we're going to go in the store and that's Walter.
Store
Right
dog.
there. All right, let's get in.
Okay, so
How do we, yeah, last time I came.
this used to be our old whiskey section, but
Yeah.
we had a truck come through our door unannounced a couple years ago. So this is now sake, non-alcoholic beer, and we've moved our whiskey over to the other side of the shop. The wine hasn't changed. The wine is still a huge part of the store and the space, but the whiskey section that we built and the spirit section is new as of about a year ago.
Looks amazing. It's absolutely beautiful. So,
We're really proud of it. But yeah, if you want
I'll
to
follow
wander over,
you, yeah. Let's go.
wander over to the whiskey section, we'll show you a couple things that stand out.
yeah.
So far end is like gin, cognac, brandy, rum, other interesting spirits, and then the bulk of the wall, really from that corner, with the exception of there's a little Irish section on the far end you can't see right now.
Okay, yeah.
This is predominantly single malts.
Single malts, okay.
Mostly independent bottlings, but we do work with other producers. The challenge is, and I'm sure it's no different for yourself, when everybody's selling brands like Glenfiddich, which make great whiskey,
They do, yeah.
it's difficult to have a business where you're not just competing on price. You're trying to offer people service, expertise. So we stock them, but we tend to focus on smaller, medium-sized producers. We do a ton of our own casks, like Gordon MacPhail.
I mean, all
Glen
these. Look at the
Talkers,
selection, guys.
2006 and 2000, so bourbon and sherry. We have an Ardmore that I think is the best Ardmore I've ever
25-year-old
tasted.
Ardmore, the sherry cask. That's superb.
Yeah.
Got to taste that.
Bunch of berries casks, Cavalan, Amroot, Compass Box, Kilhomo, tons of
Pork
different
pipe.
things.
You know what? We need to add this to our selection too. I completely forgot about that. So we'll grab that as well.
And I showed you this when you were here earlier, but we talked about that truck that went through the entrance.
yeah.
So this is something I'm kind of proud of. It was our first ever Door Crasher edition bottling, and
I like
yeah,
that.
it's the truck was a Dodge Ram, so it's a Trojan Ram speeding towards the entrance of the distillery. But we like to have some fun with things like that. Obviously, you introduced Walter when you came in. Walter's made it onto a bottle of scotch as well.
That's Walter,
Yeah.
folks, right there.
Yeah, they had managed to catch her. He's got two different colored eyes, and he always looks warily at people he's never met before. So they caught his nature quite well. And one of the other companies that we love working with is Daft Mill. One of the things that's unique is we're literally the only retailer in Canada that has access to it.
Single
And
dollar
it's
Daft Mill.
because I went to the distillery 12, 13 years ago before they were selling, because I was really interested, and I had to get people to vouch for me just so I could go visit them. And I've always had a good relationship with Barry Brothers. They were the ones who opened the door. And so when the
Barry
time
Brothers
came
are right here.
for Daft Mill to come in, we were basically told it was ours. Like, we didn't have to share it, so which has been kind of incredible.
Superb, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to grab this so that we don't forget that.
Yeah.
So tell us how this store is situated, because shall we start from there?
Yeah,
Because you
so-
have a bourbon section.
Bourbon sections here. Now, obviously, we don't have quite as many offerings as you do in the States. We try to focus on things that the staff are really passionate about. A lot of my staff love Old Forester. I'm personally a Michter's fan.
Okay.
But then we try to sprinkle in some smaller producers. We've done some of our own single casks.
You have, like, which ones are the single casks?
Well, right now the one we've got is a Doc Swinson's, which is over
I see that
there.
over there, yeah.
Yeah, but we've in the past, well, a long time ago, we did a bunch of Buffalo Trace, Evan Williams,
Evan
Elijah
Williams.
Craig. Yeah, we did two Evan Williams single barrels back in the day, and they were like $60. It was crazy. There were different
Yes,
times.
friends.
What's that?
Was it cast strength or?
They were both. I think they were both cast strength. But again, it was so long ago. It's almost hard to remember.
Right.
Over the years, we've tried to figure out, and best we can tell, we've bottled, and it said. Actually, Ashik asked me about this. On that bottle of Amrut, on the label, it says. I think it says the 100 and. What number did you put on here? It was the 145th exclusive cast.
145th. Okay.
But I think we're now well over 160 that
160,
we've bottled, and so you try to keep track of these things, but over time, the more and more you do, the harder it becomes to keep track of them.
Right.
But yeah, so bourbon here. We've got some world whiskeys up top.
World whiskeys, okay.
Yeah.
So you have Japanese whiskeys, quite
Got
a
some
few.
Japanese.
Yeah.
I mean, sadly, we don't get much from Suntory other than Hibiki and Toki. We've got a decent Canadian section too, and one of the things that's really cool is Alberta's whiskey scene is really exploding. We've got about 20 distilleries in Alberta that either have or are about to have whiskey in the years ahead. British Columbia, there's tons of distilleries with whiskey now as well.
The Shelter Point, what do you think about Shelter Point?
It's a great whiskey.
That's up to
it's-
Victoria, right?
Yeah, it's near Victoria. It's a couple hours north.
Okay.
Actually, closer to a town called Courtney.
Okay.
Two brewers in the Yukon is one we're huge fans of.
Mm-hmm.
Locally, we love Wildlife, Bridgeland, which is right in the middle of the city.
Right.
It's in an old furniture shop. Eau Claire, which has been around for a long time too.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some exciting things happening here on that side because the laws were changed in Alberta about 10 years ago that allowed these craft distilleries to start opening.
Yeah.
Prior to that, you had to be an enormous distiller just to get a license.
Right. And Canada has a lot of them.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of great distilleries, right? In Canada,
sure.
the distilling industry goes back quite a few years. So the world whiskey is very eclectic. You
Yeah.
have obviously Japanese, Indian, Taiwan, and then on top of it, Millstone from what's that?
Yeah,
Belgium?
the Netherlands.
Netherlands.
Well, the funny thing is, it's funny you said Belgium because it's just on the border with Belgium, and Millstone actually was. I remember when I visited, they were having trouble getting permits to build a warehouse because the land they wanted to build the warehouse on was technically in Belgium, even though it was just across the street.
Right.
Because it's this pocket of the Netherlands that where the border, there's no like. There's pockets of Belgium and Netherlands within each country,
Right.
and it depends on like essentially the block that
I
you're
see.
standing on.
Yeah.
But yeah, we love working with them. We've also got English whiskey, Spanish, other things. We've got some German, Austrian,
Yeah, like
Finnish,
50
Swedish.
boutique whiskey companies.
Yeah.
And they're like all over the place. They also have some. I saw like some cognac and rums and things
Yeah,
like that.
Calvados, other things that offerings from them. And then like Glenfarclas, obviously we're big fans of Glenfarclas. We've often
Of
had
course.
a big selection. We love working with the brand. Independent bottlings like Signatory, North Star.
It's a natural fit probably too, because the independent store, independent distillery in this day and age.
When they value those relationships, which means a lot. I mean, companies like Glenfarclas, like Gordon MacPhail, like Berry Brothers, they don't think in terms of years or year ends. They're about like long-term relationships, supporting your partners, and they frankly make it easier for us to work with them. Like they support us. They're not just trying to see who's going to buy what and how quickly. It's who do we want to work with, who are our key partners, and that's how we do business. We look after our customers, we foster relationships, and try to build those kind of that sense of community.
Yeah.
And so they're great partners. Adelphi's another good
Oh,
one.
superb, yeah.
Single Malts of Scotland or Elixir Distillers. We've got some great Signatory releases here. Whiskey Sponge, Decadent Drinks. A lot of these things, they don't make it to a lot of markets just because the volume they're offering is too small.
Right. And it's handsome. The amount of education and knowledge goes into. I was able to sample about, let's say, a dozen whiskeys. The amount of knowledge that your staff has is absolutely brilliant.
We're very fortunate.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant because that's the key. Because when you're having a whiskey, which let's say Ardmore, they have a official bottling, they might have one or two, but and you have like maybe 10 expressions of Ardmore. So each one of them is different, and it tastes so much different than the OB official bottling. So having someone who can first of all taste it and then able to explain as to what the differences are is amazing.
This world where anybody with money can open up a store and start selling whiskey.
Right.
The trick is, do they know, like you said, those differences? Like core releases from distilleries don't change very often. They try to keep them fairly consistent. But independent bottlings can be all over the map. Some are good, some are great, some are not so great. And even outside of that, like the whiskey might be good, but it might not be someone's style.
Correct.
You know, the only way you can really get to know that is by trying things. And so
And it's great that you have Glencairns for every pour. I had a fresh Glencairn, which is, I think, amazing, which is not easy to keep a huge array of whiskey glasses ready for the next customer.
But we want it, I mean, that's the thing, if we're going to do this, we want it to be professional. We don't want you to come in and have to drink whiskey out of a wine glass or a tumbler.
Those plastic thimble cups.
Yeah, and we've you know, we know people will probably over time nick the glasses, but it says our tasting room on it, so at least they'll be reminded where they got it if they do take it home with them. But yeah, these are all our exclusives. You know, we've got the Scotch Malt Whisky Society as well too.
Which is the selection there is amazing too. I mean, what is this? This is
So this
a
is all-
Shrine Gordon MacPhail mostly.
Yeah, it is. So, you know, and it ebbs and flows a little bit in terms of what's available, but Gordon MacPhail's been another incredible partner of ours, Ben Romick. We were given the opportunity to launch the Glenlivet 80 in Canada. We've still got one left. That's not it. It's in our safe for somewhat obvious reasons.
You know, you have great pressures here, so
Yeah, exactly.
you never know.
But yeah, they're just, these are things that are, you know, you know this as well. There's a lot of brands that have promoted this idea of like rarity, exclusivity, you know, premiumization, which I think has hit a bit of a breaking point. One of the few companies whose whiskeys are old and truly rare and can actually maybe back up some of the pricing on them is Gordon MacPhail. Like, you know, I remember a time when their whiskeys were a lot less expensive, perhaps too expensive,
Yeah.
but for whiskeys in the 40-year-old range, they still offer good value. And very few distilleries, even if they wanted to bottle those, don't have them.
They get even the official bottlings.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have to buy from Gordon MacPhail
Well,
to be able to launch it, possibly.
Well, yeah, I mean, Gordon MacPhail's too humble to tell you that, but it's a little-known secret that all the old Macallan's bottlings have been bought back from Gordon MacPhail. So, but anyway,
It's a secret.
Scotch Malt Whisky Society, obviously our Isla section's kind of
That's
in
the
here
only
as well,
store in
too.
North America, as far as I know, that can carry it on retail side.
There are a few others in Alberta and
Alberta,
BC.
okay.
So there's one in Edmonton, one in Vancouver, one in Victoria, and one in Kelowna.
I see.
But we were their original partner. You know, because we can't legally ship to BC, which is really bizarre because we're same country.
Right.
You know, it makes sense for them to have a presence in BC, and there's a couple of great
And it's a very
shops.
strong presence. The presence looks like about 60 strong at least. In that
Well, and then
region.
there's even a couple of their black label bottlings and other things that'll come through from time to time.
Yeah,
So yeah, Isla, and then you know cognac, rum, older bottlings, Armagnac, some things in there, and then yeah, there's a little Irish section. I think you know at some point we're probably going to have to make a bit more space for the Irish whiskeys, which are
About
over
50
here.
distilleries coming up, so yeah.
But it's like Scotland. The question is like how is the market going to support all of them when they come out? And I
right,
think
right,
that's a
right.
challenge.
Yeah.
But we've been big fans of Waterford, but it's become a struggle because there's just been so many
it's tough.
releases.
Again, there's so many releases, and also they're so different, and at the same time, the price point maybe, but amazing what they're trying to do. The terroir-driven, products. I also noticed these sets here. What's
So
this
these
looks
are-
like a COVID era
Yes.
that launched this kind of.
So what's really funny about our virtual tastings is we started doing those during COVID. We actually had to lobby the government for permission to do them.
Okay.
Because at first we weren't allowed. Because we used to do 2 or 3 events a week in store before that. And for a while we couldn't have that and we missed that sense of community. So we started with 50 mils. We basically bought all the 50 mils of whiskey that were available in the market,
Right.
put on events. We lobbied for this, they gave us permission. But one of the cool things that we heard out of that was that not just people in other cities, but people in Calgary. Calgary's a spread out city. It covers, you know, from one end to the other, it's got to be 60 plus kilometers
as a
in
beautiful
length.
city for anybody who wants to visit there.
But if you live in the suburbs in the deep south and you want to take part in our tasting, like that's a long taxi ride. So we heard from people they wanted this to continue, and we still do them. We do at least one virtual tasting every week. There'll be a theme involved, like that one there is a Glenfarclas family cask range. But They can be as little as $25 or as high as $300 a tasting, depending on what it is we're sampling in that specific tasting.
So I was very fortunate to attend one of the tastings on Tuesday. I've been here for 3 days, so I had one of these, and they have two 40-year-old whiskeys in there, which 99.99% of the world is never going to be able to sample and taste it. So thank you for putting it up. You know, that was a great event, and very knowledgeable folks are presenting it. So superb. And if you can ever attend one of those virtual tastings, please do.
Yeah. Well, and as you and I were talking about earlier, when you get bottles that are rare and maybe you only get a handful of them, we really like to share them. We want to, if we can open one of those bottles and have 40 or 60 people all get to try it, that's much more meaningful than having one person buy it. And so that's something we use these tastings for. That too, is it's a chance to share, educate, but again, it all comes back to community, and that community of people that support us and, you know, allow us to do what we do.
Yeah. So you're not only running a business, but it's also a passion project, in the sense that all these things don't make sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it makes sense from a whiskey standpoint, but not necessarily from a business standpoint. So
It'd be hard to scale. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to scale. I mean, we've done things, although we'll have to see what we do this year. We've for 10 years made our own whiskey advent calendar. That became hard over time because companies in Scotland or even North America don't want to produce 50 mils because they're expensive to produce. They don't last as long because the screw tops on them aren't great. But that's been a challenge. Last year we filled our own bottles. The regulator didn't really like that. So I'm not sure if we're going to do that this year, but you know, things like that differentiate us. Because as I said, like, anybody can open a store that sells whiskey. We're trying to be something more than just that. We're trying to be something different.
Well, there you have it. One of the great stores in North America and possibly in the world. So if you're ever in the Calgary region, make sure to visit here. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
That was
Vikram.
great.
Pleasure.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, of course.